Hello, my name is Alex Yu. Every night of our lives we spend about 6 to 8 hours sleeping. But how much do you actually know about sleep? How much do you actually know about what's going on in your brain when you sleep? I'd imagine that most of us don't know much about sleep past what REM stands for. Yet to understand sleep puts you in a position to improve your life through increased cognition, as well as a general happier mood. Now, I've been studying sleep for quite some time. I've read many peer-reviewed journals. I've studied it heavily for my MCAT as well as for my anatomy and physiology courses, which is why I've kind of chosen to be the topic of my informative discussion. Now, sleep is one of the most critical aspects of healthy human functioning, but it's also one of the most complex things. It's much more complex than many of us realize. So today we're going to start off with a kind of basic terminology course of brain waves in terms of sleep. We'll go next into the actual process of sleep itself, and we will end with a kind of how and why session behind sleep in terms of physiology as well as neuroanatomy. Now, from when we first lie down, we kind of start our journey through sleep. So brain activity is measured on what's called an electroencephalography, or EEG as I'll be referring to it as, which kind of measures the electrical synapsing activity in the brain and plots it on a graph. Now, there are four main types of brain waves associated with consciousness. There's beta, alpha, theta, and delta waves. The first type, beta waves, as you can see here, are seen on EEG as very high frequency, dynamic waves, and they're associated with high brain activity and being in a state of alertness and awakeness. The second type, alpha waves, are more sinusoidal in nature, and they're seen as, they're more associated with being awake, but being in a sleepy or kind of bored mood, if you will. The next type are theta waves, which mark the beginning of actual sleep. And the final type are called delta waves, which, as you can see, are much more low frequency in nature and mark the beginning of deep sleep or slow wave sleep. Now that we've gone through the basic terminology of sleep, we can go through the actual process itself, which is called the sleep cycle. It's a 90-minute cycle that kind of repeats itself until you wake up. It's split into two phases, non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement sleep, or NREM and REM sleep, as I'll be referring to it as. Now, NREM sleep is split itself into three phases. The first stage is marked by theta waves, as we discussed before, and it's very easy to be aroused during this stage. The second stage is marked by the beginning of what you can see here called K complexes, which are very high voltage and low frequency in nature, and sleep spindles, which are very high frequency, low voltage in nature. And I left it out of the first part because we're not entirely sure what they do. But according to Matteo Caporo's article, Functional MRI of Sleep Spindles and K Complexes, found in February 2012's issue of Clinical Neurophysiology, they're most associated with memory consolidation in terms of facts, so declarative memory consolidation, as well as keeping the body in homeostasis while you're asleep. And the third stage of NREM sleep is called slow wave sleep, and it's marked by the beginning of delta waves, as we've said before. And in this stage, it's very hard to be aroused via reticular formation arousal, which is the part of the brain right here in the brainstem associated with arousing you when you're asleep. So it's very hard to be aroused. And it's important in that it's where much of the cognitive regeneration happens during sleep. And after slow wave sleep marks the beginning of REM sleep, which is marked by what's called paradoxical sleep. And it's called so because you're asleep, yes, but you exhibit many sympathetic behaviors while you're asleep, like increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, and of course the classic rapid eye movement back and forth that gives it its name. It's also where much of the dreaming happens, as well as procedural memories consolidated in this stage of sleep. But it's much shorter than NREM sleep, typically only lasting about 10 minutes. Now let me ask you something. Why do we sleep? And not just why, how do we sleep? What's happening in our brain when we sleep? Now, I can tell you this, there's not a unanimous consensus among scientists about the hows and whys but I can present to you the most evidence-backed hypotheses in terms of cognitive regeneration as well as memory consolidation. Now, in terms of cognitive regeneration, according to Russell Foster's show TED Talks, which aired in 2013, we selectively express more genes when we're asleep than compared to when we're awake. So specific genes are expressed more often when we're asleep, and these products we believe are associated with neural maintenance. So when we're asleep, basically we express more products that help us maintain our brain and regenerate different parts of it. In terms of memory consolidation, according to Chiara Cirelli and Guido Tononi in the article Why Do We Sleep?, found in March 2018's issue of Neurology Reviews, the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis is most widely accepted in terms of memory consolidation. So as you can see here, here's a synapse, and our synapses, according to the data, they decrease by 20% when we're asleep. And this acts as a kind of pruning of our brain, dumping unnecessary memories, consolidating necessary ones, as well as making room for more memories the next day. Now that we've gone over the basics of sleep, let's review just for a minute. Now, we started off with basics of brainwave functionings and types. Next we moved into the actual process of sleep itself, and we ended with a kind of how and why session in terms of neuroanatomy, right? Now I want to challenge you to research more about sleep, because when you understand sleep, it puts you in a position to better your life. It puts you in a position to understand more about how things like caffeine and alcohol affect your sleep, even when you think it doesn't. And when you understand about sleep, and when you understand how it affects you, you can increase your cognitive function, as I said before, and really you increase your life in general. Thank you.